So this tutorial we're going to have a look through creating the actual arm rig itself. Um, After we've installed the importers and export for Max, I think it's just a matter of extracting the zip files into the plugins folder. We can import the original arms. The rig, basically, we've got this main controller which controls both the movement of the arms, like so, in any which direction we fancy. And we've also, using the same controller, we can rotate the hand. Right, there we go. And last but not least, we've just got the general finger movement, like so. Basically, the rig consists of a mixture of what we call broken mesh and just your regular bones. So you've got our regular bones here for the main arm, and this is the broken mesh on the hand, which what you can see is basically this is just the model of the original hand, which I've used the detach tool on and just broken it up into lots of little sections, which we'll look at in a minute. And what this does is just allows us to actually have a very good idea of the shape and form of our hand. It's a lot easier to animate, a lot easier. But we'll move on to that in a second. Oh, I've also done the gun, which I've scaled down, put a few things on, but I haven't actually rigged it yet. But that's just a selection of bones and dummies. One for the top slide, one for the main gun, one for the clip, for the trigger here. Pew pew pew. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset. Yes, do I really want to reset? Yes, I do. Right, so I've got my tutorial folder here, where I've decompiled all my stuff to. I'm just going to drag and drop my hands SMD, or hand reference, and just click. Right, I'm just going to sort of move it into position. What you want to make sure is in the front viewport, it's going to be facing you. I'm just going to press A quickly, and yeah. Sorry, I'm going to press A to put the snap on. We'll change it 90 degrees that way, and 90 degrees this way. And just sort of plonk it about in the middle, like so. And what I'm going to do is just delete one of the arms, and I'm going to delete the one which seems the straightest. And so this one here is on the lower arm here. It's sort of slightly angled with the hand, so I'm going to get rid of him. Oh, in fact, first of all, I'm just going to select both arms. They're all in one object. Control I, hit delete to get rid of all the bones. I'm going to right click in our modifier stack. I'm just going to collapse all, get rid of the skin modifier. I mean, I can go through, remove this arm, get this guy, and I'm going to just mirror him over with a no copy on. In fact, actually, I will do a copy because we want both the arms. There you go, so both the arms are exactly the same. They're using exactly the same UV space. I'm just going to attach them together. Right. You notice is our bound-in box. It's kind of a little bit of an angle, which we don't really want. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a random object box. Secondly, another quick thing is you want to check your scale. So I've just right-clicked on scale there rather than just normal clicked it. You can do it on all of the things. It gives you options, which sliders, which can move stuff. But what you notice is our X scale is -100. That's very bad. It means that your animations, your models are likely to have their normals flipped and therefore be inside out when you've got them compiled and in working game, which is a pain, especially when you've worked so hard to create stuff. But I'm just going to right click on this box, edit poly, and I'm going to attach our original model. I'm just going to go through and then delete the box. What that does is it's sorted out our binding box, and it's also reset our scales, so it's all on 100 again. Right, so these are our original arms. I don't really want to move. I'm just going to put the pivot actually in the middle for a moment. This is going to come in handy for when we start scaling things in a bit. Well, not scaling things, mirroring stuff. But as I said before, actually, sorry, I've done this. The best thing to do with this. So I was doing this yesterday and found out this was the best way. As I keep saying, it's kind of really funny with the whole mirroring, you know, items across and this whole changing of X form thing. So the best thing to do is do it all in one go, reset it all in one go, and leave it at that. So that's what I'm going to do. So just ignore that little thing there, but you'll see why in a bit. So I'm just going to convert this to editable poly, which it already is. I'm going to right click, clone as copy. Make sure it's a copy and not an instance or a reference. I'm just going to select this, our original hide, and this one I'll just call rig or something. It doesn't really matter because most of it's going to be deleted. So we're just going to start off by removing all of this arm geometry, which we don't want. Geometry wise, it doesn't really matter how many polygons there are not there. It all just gets converted into bones when you compile it. But I still like to have a quick go around and delete everything that's a bit unnecessary. Right, now that we've done that, we're going to just want to start breaking this guy up. So you're just making selections as to where you're going to want bones. So we're going to have like 3 on the fingers, 3 on the thumbs. I'm just going to hit detach and detach as OK. So that's detached as a new object. And you just want to go all the way around, detaching, detach. You can just do a normal sort of rig with bones for the hand here. That is totally fine as well. This is just how I prefer to do it. I don't know how much people know about animation, so I'm just going to do it my way. Yeah, I've done it in the past, it's worked fine, I've never had any problems compiling or anything. I'll take detach as well. Just going to move on to the fingers. Just making selections, detach. So as I was saying, the main advantage of broken mesh is being able to see, you get a good idea of what your animation is going to look like before you've sort of unhid the mesh, because normally you'll hide out all the mesh and just animate with the bones, and then unhide, make any sort of adjustments that you need. Attach, yes. The disadvantage of this though, which is a little bit of a pain, is with bones, when you create them, the pivot point's in the right place, which is basically the start of the bone. So yeah, the pivot points are all in the right place, but with this you have to go through and do quite a bit of editing to make sure it's all working correctly. But I don't know, it's your call. Right, let's just get rid of all this, which we don't want. I'm just going to put ignore back facing on, because otherwise I'm going to go through and select or deselect all the bits that I don't want to deselect, like him up there. That would do, so detach, okay, and then I'm just going to press delete. We're just going to delete the rest of all the bits that we didn't detach. Right, now I'm just going to unhide. Right, now I'm going to copy over our stuff. You don't want to change any of the pivot points before you copy it, because otherwise it will go all over the place when you do so. which isn't a bit of a pain in the bum. So I'm just going to select, hold down shift, drag it over, okay. You click on the mirror tool up here, no clone, okay. Right, if I select some of these things and right click, you'll notice that they're going to be -100. So I'm just going to select everything under my, is this the hierarchy tab? Yeah, I'm just going to select all of it, I'm going to under reset, I'm just going to hit scale and transform. I did it to this lot as well, and that should reset everything back to 100, 100, 100. So if you ever take any notice of the GameArt.net forums and have a look at my thread where I've been posting my Glock, you'll notice that I had a little bit of a problem when compiling. I figured out what it was, and this is just a quick fix. Slap bang in the middle of the tutorial, so everything's going to be a bit funny, but it doesn't matter. But basically what has happened is where I've mirrored over the arms and the broken mesh bones here, there's been problems with the X-form, and which has caused my model to go a little haywire and my arms to have these big ET fingers on the go. And it's a very quick and easy little fix. What we're just going to do, we're just going to reset the X-forms, to say, do it now. The tutorials from here onwards haven't had the X-forms done, but if you do it now, shouldn't be any problem. The tutorials should still work perfectly fine. All we need to do is we need to select our models here, like so. This arm in particular. I'm just going to go on the little hammer more, and we should, in fact, reset X-form. Here we go. Reset selected. You see how the model has gone inside out? Do you see that? Let's hope you do. So it's going to go through, set everything. It's a little bit of a pain, but this is why there's problems. This hand, on the other hand, you reset X-form, nothing happens, which means it's perfectly fine. But you can see how the mesh has flipped the normals and it's gone a little bit haywire, and it's problems like this that cause you compiling problems when you get in game. Just gonna collapse all, yes. Just gonna have to attach all this together again, and then just take it apart. So, do I? Never sure if there's a flip. There we go. So under edit polygons, I've selected everything, and I've just hit flip, and that should fix everything. Now what we need to do is just go through, detach all of the fingers and joints into individual pieces, and once again go in and sort out the problems. Well, not the problems, just got to move the pivots once again, and hopefully during compiling you'll see you'll see very few problems. Okay, that's it for the fix. 100. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is just go back to our original arm, which has been unhidden now. And I'm just going to attach both the arms together. You want these to be one object, not two separate ones, like so. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work on one hand. Both of them are going to work exactly the same way. If you need to, you can always watch through this video again. If you haven't done much rigging, this it might be a little hard to pick up, but I did do that little video at the start to give you a bit of a sense of what's going on. But we'll get into it. So our first job is just to sort out all the pivots on the fingers. You want the pivot to be where the bone is going to start. So if the hand is going to start the wrist here, what I thought you could do, which apparently you can't, is to rotate your pivot, which is a major pain in the butts. Unless, actually, you might be able to. 1 second. let's try. So we want to rotate, oh, affect pivot only, we want to rotate pivot so it is in line with our thumb, like so. Put this on local, there we go, that's better. Local. So now we can rotate along that thumb angle. You just got to make sure you've got it, your pivot method or whatever you want to call it, on local. It's going to carry on going through. So we just want him about there. Rotate him round. And we've done. And it's going to go through, do all these fingers centre. I'm not sure if you can do big selections. Let's try. We'll select all these. Hit centre on all of them. Ah, fantastic. So now it's just a matter of going through. With the start of the finger, you've got to remember that the pivot is slightly more in the hand than anything. The pivot is where your knuckle starts more than where the finger, than just there. Just keep that in mind. I am rushing through this a bit. The best thing to do is quite a bit of testing as well, especially later on. But we'll do that when I get to the waiting stages. Oh, waiting, that's fun. Nearly as fun as unwrapping. Right. So we've got all the pivot points sorted out. Like I say. Next thing we're going to do is just create a hierarchy. So we want the main parent of the hand to be this sort of palm area. So when we move the palm area, all the little fingers and thumbs will move with the hand, and then the tips of the fingers will be the sort of the child working up to the palm. So we basically make we got our select and link tool out, and we start with the child, which would be the thumb tip, the middle of the thumb to the sort of base of the thumb, all the way to the hand. Now if we go back, we can move this whole hand, and the thumb moves, and then accordingly we can move the base there, and these guys, like so. And we just want to go through and do that on all the fingers as well. So, do all the fingers down to their base. I'm just going to select all the base of the fingers and drag that over to the hand. I would advise you to test it, make sure it's all working, everything's doing what it's meant to do. See, like there, that wasn't working correctly. I'm moving that, nothing's happening. Move him, it is happening. So I'm just going to fix that. Through. Just give him a quick flick. Right, so that's all working. I'm going to do a quick save. Save as tutorials, animation. Rig vid. That'll do me. Right, now what you want to do is just create the bones for the bicep and the lower arm. So I'm going to my create tool, and I've got the systems at the end here, and bones. I'm going to get into a nice side viewport. And click here, click here, click here, and right click. It'll automatically create what we call this little nub bone. I like to call it a new bone, just because I'm elite. So I'm going to move him into position. Now what we want to do is, I'm going to try and copy it. But you can't copy bones like you copy any other normal geometry. What you've got to do is, under animation, I think, where is it? Sorry, character, bone tools, mirror. Yep, so you want it on the x-axis. Okay. Drag these guys along. But, he's not very happy about it. I mean, really, the best thing to do is just create new bones. Okay, reset. You know, see, that is sort of weirdly upside down, even though it's all going in the right directions. Although the transforms and scales are right. So, no, I'm just going to create new bones, and it's probably a good idea if you do. Possibly might be able to drag them over like so. I mean, the thing is, I like to, you know, copy them, things like that, because then they're exactly the same. But I don't trust it. Okay, it's a bit risky. I've just selected it, held down shift, dragged it over, but I made sure I went in and with the bone tool. You don't want to do it with the normal scale tool, you want to use the bone scale tool, which we saw characters bone tools here. Reset stretch, reset scale, that sort of stuff. Just to make sure. Another thing which I would advise you to do would be to go through and name, I'm going to hide all this because we don't want that, is just to go through and name your bones. So L for upper arm, and then up arm dot bone. So the L gives us an indication of what side it's on, so left and right we'll have. Then we've got sort of what it is, so low arm. And then having the sort of type of item it is also helpful. So you know what's bones, what's controllers, etc. This little nub bone we've got here is going to be deleted in a minute, so we don't need that. But I would advise you to go through and name all the hand bones as well. It's one of those things that helps as you go through your pipeline, but I'm not going to bother doing it. But I would advise you to do it, especially if you're going to use the rig over and over again. Have a quick page about. If you want to move the start points of your bones, you've got to move with the see, look at that. Problems there already. Oh blimey. L dot up bone. L dot low up bone. Right, yeah, so if you do want to move, you've got to go under hierarchy tool. And then you just want to affect pivot only, and you've got to move them with the pivot like that. Don't know why, don't ask me why, but that's what you got to do. So it's going to move him into the wrist position. Right, so what we want to do is we want to just start off by adding a dummy, and the dummy is basically going to replace this bone here. Thinking about it, you might not actually need to. my 1 minute. I'm going to do it anyway. I can't be bothered to fuffle around. What you will notice though, wait, I should tell you that in a minute when I actually do it. Would be a good idea. So I'm just going to go under helpers here. I'm going to create a dummy. Once you've created this dummy, do not scale it. Do not scale it. And I'm just going to use my align tool here, and I'm going to align to the X, Y, Z positions. Pivot point. So it's directly on the end of this bone here, at the start of this bone. I'm just going to go through selecting this guy and hitting delete. I'm then going to select our dummy and link it to the end of this bone here. So that's a link from the dummy to here. Just going to check it's working by rotating this bone here, and yep, you can see the dummy follows on. Right, what we want to do is create an IK chain. I'm going to use a limb solver from our shoulder bone here, right at the top, to our wrist. Basically, how it works out where the IK is going to bend, i.e. at the elbow here, is by the angle which is already in the bones. So the angle's along there and up there, so it's going to bend accordingly. If you have your bones perfectly straight, the IK is not going to be able to work out where you want it to bend, which can be a problem. I'm just going to select our IK there, and we've just got this global display. I'm going to put that down to about 10 or so, which is just going to reduce the size and I'll probably a bit smaller. 5. Yeah, it's just a bit better than scaling it, because again, scaling equals problems. So now if we select this guy, our IK, and move it moves all of this. And what we want is this little guy to be hierarchy linked to our dummy. Now, with the hand linked to the dummy, when we rotate the dummy, the hand will rotate up and down, left and right, all over the place. I'll do that again just to show you, because I sort of rushed it a bit. I'm going to select the hand, the main palm of the hand, and I'm going to link it with the select and link tool to the dummy. So the dummy creates this movement to the hand, while the IK chain creates this movement to the arm. The last step of the creating this hand rig is to go in and just create just anything that you really want, but I like to use one of these crazy circle things, which is going to basically do both of those things itself. So I'm just going to select a circle. I'm going to choose a nice colour. I'm just going to go with a red because we haven't actually got any red around here, so it'll stand out a bit. Again, best not to scale, so I'm going to do it here to get a good idea about the size that I want. That will do. I'm going to press A to put on my angle snap. Hold down Shift. Do about 90 degrees this way. Okay, 90 degrees around this way. So you've got this nice controller. I'm going to convert to an editable spline, attach here and attach here. I'm going to make sure it's red again. Okay. Right. So what we want to do is we just want to align it up with our dummy here. So pivot point, X, Y, Z positions along here. Okay. Now, the best way to make this follow the movement is just a normal link. You can only have one link per object. So what I was thinking earlier was that I may actually be able to link this dummy to our controller here, but we can't do that because then it will destroy the link between the dummy and this bone and the rig won't work. So what we need to do is use one of the constraints we were talking about earlier, so that the dummy here can pick up on the rotation and then transfer it into the hand. So the best way to do that is one of the constraints that we looked at earlier, which was the orientation constraint. So I'm going to select our dummy, animation constraints, orientation constraint, and then I'm just going to click on our dummy here. If you get something like this happening, you just want to go into some of the options here. Keep initial offset, tick that on. It should move it back to its own position. That's just to do with pivot points and things, but that should do. Now what you'll find is we'll rotate our little controller that we've made. In fact, I am going to name that lris.ctrl. These help with exporting things. It'll help if you need to, like, make selections when you importing and exporting and merging files. You'll know what's what. L.ik, l.ris.dummy. Right, so what's happening is the orientation constraint is copying the rotational movement of this controller. So we rotate, it goes into the dummy, which then in turn goes into the hand through just a normal link, as you can see. Bam, bam, bam. Second to that, we have the movement, which from just a normal link from the IK to the dummy, the controller, we can just move it and it will move. And it moves, as I said before, because this dummy is constrained to the position of the IK, in turn bending at the elbow. That's it. Basically, it's a lot simpler than it looks. Well, actually, it is simpler than it looks. It just takes a few goes to do it and get the hang of it. I was just having a quick look at the length. Half an hour so far. So what I'm going to do is unhide all. You're going to need to do this exact same thing to this other arm. You can't, as I said, copy it over by selecting it all, holding shift, whatever. You've got to do the actual rigging itself again, because it will cause problems. It's a bit of a pain, but it will cause problems. I think I may have time just to be able to actually rig and weight the gun as well. So what I'm going to do is just go into our file here, go into merge. I'm just going to go through and find our gun. Tutorials, weapon, final Glock, here we go. It's the teapot that we want. Right, we're just going to rotate it, pressing A again to get an our angle snap, 180 degrees. I'm also going to flip it. Don't ask me why, I don't know, but I'm just scaling it up to about the right size in comparison to the hands at the moment. We know that the hands are the right size because we've exported them from the game. If you don't measure it up, the gun might end up absolutely humongous in the game, or really teeny weeny. So just get it in, scale it. We'll reset the scale in a second before we start animating it, because it'll be a pain to do it. The idea is you want your sort of first file, your sort of base file to be perfect. Otherwise all those errors are going to go across into your other animations. Just have a little fiddle about. I think it's a little too thin. Right, what was I saying? Yeah, you see how I've lined this up with the left hand? I don't know why, but a lot of the Half-Life stuff is left-handed, all the guns, and then it flips according to your settings in-game. The default stuff is left-handed. If you were to animate in the right hand, when you put it in-game, it would be left-handed, where all your other guns would be right-handed. I don't know why, but But I mean, saying that, if you made a gun for every single gun in the game and animated it right-handed, when the game was telling it to be left-handed, it would be right-handed, and it just makes a mess. And it's hard to flip your animations later on. But is that a little small? Is that a little big? Maybe a touch smaller. I think that would about do. A little quick thing that you can do is if you double click at the top of your hierarchy, it will select everything below it. So you can use that to sort of just hide things. Let's get rid of all of this. Right, so we've got our gun. First things we want to do is just select, transform and scale. We want to reset under the hierarchy tools up here, transform, scale. Just right click on here again, as always, just to make sure it has been done. Right, you can't animate the gun, as some people seem to think, through... I'm just going to collapse our stack here. Through just selecting elements and animating them. That doesn't work, and it is by no means the best way of doing it. As I've said previously, it basically animates dependent on the movement of the bones and stuff like that, and it references other files for where the bones are and all that sort of stuff, so that's not going to work. What we need to do is rig it with some bones. So I'm just going to have a quick look in the side viewport, like so, and just going to create a couple of bones and bits and bobs. So we want one for the trigger. Let's get these down to half decent size, try 0.3, 0.3. A trigger start about there, and there, and I'm just going to right click, delete this little nub bone. I'm also going to rename this G for Glock and trigger.bone. Also going to create a bone for the top slide here. Oops, excuse me. Delete the nub. Actually, I'm not going to create a bone for that. I'm going to create a dummy just to show you that it's perfectly fine and you can do that. I am going to create a bone for the clip though. I'm going to have the main pivot point at the bottom, so I'll click at the bottom first and then click towards the top. Just select him, G for clock, clip.bone. We're also just going to create a couple of dummies, so we want to go helpers, dummy for the slide here, nice and big, and then a dummy for the main gun on the grip, because that's where you're going to want the gun to pivot around the grip there. So block dot body dot dummy and block dot slide dot dummy. Okay. And we're just going to move them into position. Guns don't take that long to actually weight at all, so I'm going to do that now and give you a bit of an explanation of what weighting is, and it'll be a lot simpler doing it on this Glock than anything else. Oh, I would suggest, I should have said it at the time really, would be to save your arms before you start going in and doing the actual rigging. If you make errors, you can always go back and fix them. So, weighting is the technique whereby we attach the vertices of a mesh to bones, and then when they're attached, your verts will follow the movement of the bones and in turn move your model, and that's how animation works. Excuse me. Oh, that's not very nice. Okay, I made a slight little booby there. Where I flipped it, it's made all my texture go back to front, and Obviously on most of the stuff you can't really see it, but when it comes down to the actual writing you can. But I have fixed it along there. I didn't fix this little bit at the back here. I'm going to show you how to do that now. Luckily we've done our texture in layers. What we need to do is just go through, select our layers with our writing on along here, and just flip it. And that should be enough to just fix it up. So in our plastic layer up here, we've got our writing layer. I'm just going to select, edit, transform, flip that vertically, Control H to hide, and that's it, pretty much fixed. The only thing we've got to do now is really just sort out the TGA. Open up our TGA. Select all. Actually, right, image, layers, sorry. Flatten image, okay. Control A, Control C, Control V. Sorry, that was a bit of a boo-boo there. I'm just going to Control Z a couple of times, Control Alt Z just to get rid of that flattened layers. And then I'm just going to do what I did before. Filter, add the sharpen filter, Control L, and just have a little play with the layers, or the levels, just to darken up a touch as we did before. Okay. Control E, channels. Our alpha's still in there. Those are very slightly wrong now, but I can't really be bothered to change it. I would advise you to change it. So I'm just going to save that over our Glock again. Yes, that's 2-bit. Okay. Just going to press M. I'm actually going to apply our material to this. What we want to do is first of all get rid of the unwrap. So just collapse all. Yes. What we want to do is select one of our little object spheres, our material spheres, and we want to change our material type to a multi-sub object. So I'm just going to do that. I'll just click stand here, and we want multi-sub object. Okay. Discard old material, doesn't really matter. And then we're just going to select our top material. It's also important that everything has smoothing groups, I believe. I'm just going under diffuse colour bitmap. I'm just going to find our TGA file. It can be any file type, this, as long as the actual name of the file that you put in, the name of the texture, is exactly the same, other than the file extension, as the texture that you're going to compile, because it looks at the name, not the file extension, so it doesn't matter. But I just like to use my texture that I am going to compile just to be safe. Then I know that the name's going to be right, and I don't have anything to worry about, so I'm just going to chuck him in. When you render out on this, it's going to look a bit funny. It's going to look all shiny and funny. That's because it's using the alpha map for the alpha source, so I'm just going to put that on none, and it should come up fine. Apart from that little bit on the end, which doesn't have a texture. I think I've figured it out. A couple of sections here aren't getting any texture on, and when you create objects, or when you have a quick look at this, there's, where are we, different material IDs, and I'm thinking that these couple of areas that don't have the texture on are just under a different material ID. So I'm just going to select everything, set ID here. I'm just going to press 1 and hit enter, untick, there we go, and we've got our texture back. Fantastic. If you've got more than one texture on an object, so say this little crosshair or something had a second texture, you would just put that as material ID 2, and you would insert your texture into the second material ID. Right, so now that the texture's on there, so we've created a multi-sub object. In there we've just applied our bitmap, blocked the TGA, unticked the show alpha source thing, and we've got him on. We've made sure also that it's all the same material ID to make sure our texture is displayed. Alright, sorry, I'm a little bit off course now, sort of had a couple of little issues, but a bit of perseverance and we've sorted them out. Right, let's go on with weighting this guy. First thing we've got to do, I'm just going to hide the gun quick, is we just need to sort out the hierarchy like we have done on the other ones. Basically, the clip and the slide are both attached to the handle. Sorry, the slide and the trigger. The clip we're going to leave just on its own for a minute, and we'll sort that out per animation, because we've got the reload which is going to use the link constraint, and the other ones is just going to be linked to here, but it's just a bit easier just to leave it on nothing. I'm just going to unhide by name. I think we want Teapot. Unhide. I'm going to rename that gun to Glock because Teapot sounds a bit handy. Could even call it Glock.mesh. Plan. Right, so what we want to do is we want to apply the skin modifier, and the skin modifier is what allows us to attach our verts and our mesh, our model, to the bones. And so I've just added that on, and the first thing that we want to do is add the bones. In fact, I have a little talk for it. So this bone section is where we add the bones that are going to be weighted. Then we've got these envelope properties. The only thing that we're going to use in here is these mirror bones parameters, which are very handy. You're going to save you a lot of time. I only found out about them quite recently and realised that I've been wasting a lot of my time. And we're also going to use this weight tool. And in here we can add weights to verts, copy and paste them, blend them, stuff like that. But what you'll find is that when you do weight objects, you can add you add the values to the verts, and that value being between 0 and 1. 1 is a very strong link to a bone, and 1 is no link to a bone, and every vert altogether has a value of 1. So if you had a value of 0.5 to one bone, it'd be 0.5 to another bone. That means it would be half linked to 2 bones and sort of help with blending and stuff. Kind of hard to explain, I guess, but once I get to weighting hands, you'll soon see. So with a gun there isn't going to be any blending, so it's going to be very, very easy. The first thing we want to do is add our bones. Now that I've added G to the start of all my bones, I know exactly where they are, so I'm just going to select, hold down shift, and I've got my trigger, slide, clip and body, and I'm just going to move this guy up. I'm just going to select. Now the best way to do this, what we want to do is we want to edit envelopes. I find that the crazy envelope things annoy me a little bit. So under, I think, display, we just want to, what is it, show no envelopes, that's the one. Right, you see that we've got slightly different, I'm just going to put, we've got all these different colours, and the colours represent how strong verts are to bones. Red is a full value. You see that it'll tell you according to what bone that you've selected. So, sorry, get under here again. These little lines we've got are the bones. If I select this bone, it shows you all the verts which are connected to the bone through the colour. So blue is a very low value, red is a very strong value, and we go around with that. So what we want to do first is we're just going to select under, it's up here, we're just going to select verts, You also want edge faces on, so I've just pressed F4 there. And we can now select all our verts, like so. Can do Control A. And we're just going to get our little tool up here. Our weight tool, give us this little float on top box. And we've selected everything, we've selected the body bone, and we're just going to hit 1. So every single vert is attached to this bone and only this bone. There's a few handy little options in here which make rigging guns very quick, which is the select element tool. So all we need to do now is just select the different elements of our model. So if I click and drag here, it's just going to select the trigger. I can go through, select our trigger bone, and just hit 1. The little squares you get around the verts indicate that they've been selected. So now that the trigger is 100% connected to the trigger bone. I'm just going to do the same with the slide bone, or the slide vert. So I'm just going to select a little piece of the slide. We need to select the actual slide itself and the sights. We also need to select these little twisty on the side. That's all selected, indicated to us by the squares. Select our bone, which is the top slide. You can also select them over here on the side, of course, like slide, and we want to weight it to at a total value of 100% to that bone. Last but not least, we've got the clip, which we're going to 100% assign to clip. So we can select clip and press 1. Of course, you can put lots more little bones on wherever you want. You could have bones for these guys, little buttons and things, but I'm not going to bother. I don't really see the point. Once that's done, we come out of there and we can move these about. So this is just selecting the bones. If I rotate the trigger bone, we'll see that the trigger moves. And of course, if we select the top slide, we can move it back, and that will move as well. So I'm just going to do a quick save and show you. Spend the last couple of minutes here just showing you how this will work. So what I'm going to do, I've just saved it. I'm going to, if I press H, I can get a selection table. And I'm just going to select the clip just by ticking it in there and select. And I'm just going to attach them to the main body. So as you can see, the main body moves everything. I'm just going to do a quick little move about animation. Put it on to 20 frames. So all we're going to do is just say at frame 1, frame 0, you're here. Frame 10. Say about frame 2, you've come back a little bit, like so. Dash. A little bit of recall. Bang. Bang. At frame 8, you're going to be back at 0. Okay. Let's get this back down to 8 frames. So, bang, bang, bang. Like so. So that's the sort of keyframes of a gun shooting. Comes back quickly, bang, and then you spend a sort of a little longer going back to the original position. Bang. It's very important that you have the very first frame and the very last frame of your repeating animations exactly the same. So for a shoot, first and last frames the same. Reload, first and last frames the same. And this helps with the blend in the animations together. The otherwise, if they're different, let's say you were the same as number 2 instead. There's a little jump. I'm just going to use the comma and full stop to go through frames. There's a little jump there which we don't really want. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So now that's done, we can basically go through and select these other bones. pull this guy back, and you'll see that although this bone or the dummy here has its own independent movement, it is always in conjunction with its parent bone, so our main dummy just here. So you see it follows it back, but also does its own independent movement and moves that top slide back. I'm also just going to select him, and I'm going to just copy the source time of 0 onto the last destination there. So it slides back into position. If anything, you probably want it to do a bit faster, like so. Looks a bit specky. I think it's because I'm recording it. And of course, you can rotate this little guy as well. Say at frame 6. I'm going to right click, source time as 0, so it's come back. In our time configuration, I'll just click this button here. We can also change the speed of our animation so we can watch it slow-mo. I'm just going to put it in slower time. Just going to give you an idea of what's going on there. So we've got that slide moving back. We've got the trigger moving. Like I say, so that gives you an idea of how animation works. I'm going to just go through now and rig up that other arm and get rid of these animations. Say no keyframes on the gun, all the keyframes are on our bones there. But anyway, go rig your stuff. Now